14 more Texas targets were in town this past weekend, and recruiting for the class of 2026 is really heating up. We've got the latest insider intel coming out of the weekend on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your Longhorn friends about Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Texas baseball has landed 2 more portal commitments over the weekend, and for the 4th time in the last 5 years, Texas has won the Directors' Cup. We'll get to those topics in a bit, but first, Texas hosted the second of 3 official visitor groups over the weekend as they brought in 14 more targets for the class of 2026. And several of those recruits are guys that I ultimately think will end up as a part of this class. We've got some insider intel on a number of players who were here, starting with the 5-star offensive tackle Felix Ojo from Mansfield Lake Ridge up near the Metroplex, a guy we've talked about a ton on this show, and a guy that I think every Texas football fan knows about at this point. Ojo, the top-ranked player in the state and a top 10 player nationally, was in town this weekend, and it was his final OV of the summer. Remember, he canceled the OU visit that he had scheduled for this coming weekend. So as of now, he's done. Now, he could plan one more visit for the coming weekend since he canceled on Oklahoma. Some rumors that he might go look at Utah, which would be interesting, but the school being added this late into the cycle, I don't think you have to worry about them too much. And we spent a lot of time last week talking about how a lot of folks in the industry felt like this was a Red River battle for Felix Ojo, right? Was it going to be Texas? Was it going to be Oklahoma? Texas gets the visit, and by all accounts, it was a very good visit with Felix in town, and Oklahoma's visit gets scrapped. So the Longhorns, I think, in a very, very good standing. I would put them in the driver's seat right now. Michigan and Ohio State still in the mix as well. Ojo took visits to both of those campuses earlier in the month. Ojo has yet to announce a commitment date. That could happen at any point. He might not announce a commitment date. He just might commit maybe this week. But again, if he decides to add one more visit to his slate, it could come as early as next week. But from folks that I've talked to behind the scenes, feels like Texas, once again, in a very good spot with Felix Ojo. And look, you always want to keep your top players in state. You always want to keep them coming to the University of Texas. You're able to get the number 1 player in the country at a premium position. That'd be huge for this Texas class, which is already doing great. The Longhorns have had 5 players commit in the month of June so far, so they already have this thing snowballing a little bit. You get Felix Ojo officially in the mix, then that will help a ton. So again, Texas in the driver's seat there. Some other names. We've got a lot to get to. Honestly, we're going to probably spend 2 segments talking about these names today because there's a lot. How about a pair of linebackers who were in town from the state of Georgia? We'll start with 5-star linebacker Xavier Griffin, who is the number 1 ranked linebacker in this class. Griffin was in town, and by all accounts, he had a great visit. He gave a couple of quotes saying he enjoyed being around the guys. He also said that Alan Clark was very involved during this visit. Of course, Alan Clark, the new edge coach on this Texas staff. The Longhorns brought him in from Ohio State. We spent a whole segment last week talking about the recruiting prowess of Alan Clark. He's done a tremendous job. Some folks are calling him the Tashard choice of this coaching staff. Like, everybody knows how good of a running back coach choice was, but they also know how good of a recruiter he was during his time at Texas. That's why him leaving for the NFL felt like such a big loss for the Longhorns. Well, Alan Clark, again, getting those types of comparisons during his first cycle here at Texas. And he's been involved not only on the edge rushers that are looking at Texas, but on just guys that Texas views as very, very important in this 26 cycle. Xavier Griffin said, quote, "Alan Clark was trying to stress how bad they want me, just trying to show me how they can use me and take my game to the next level," end quote. Texas has implemented an interesting strategy, maybe the right word, when talking to Xavier Griffin. They are trying to sell him on the Anthony Hill plan. Remember, Anthony Hill played off the edge during his freshman season at Texas back in 2023. He was really good at that, but they moved him to a more traditional off-ball linebacker spot. That's where he played last year. That's where he's going to play this coming season. Texas has kind of been selling that exact timeline/plan to Xavier Griffin, and it sounds like he's pretty receptive to that idea as well. Griffin, 6'4", 205, 210. Anthony Hill coming out of Duncanville High School, about 6'2", 6'3", 220. So similar-ish in frame, more similar in game. Both freak athletes with incredible instincts and guys that it almost doesn't matter where you line them up on a defense. They're going to make some things happen. We've all seen that firsthand with Ant Hill these last 2 years in Austin, and Xavier Griffin is that type of player in high school at Georgia. You know, again, top-ranked linebacker in the country. Ant Hill was a bona fide five-star, one of the top players in America in his cycle in 2023. So you understand those comparisons, and you understand why that type of sell would work on a guy like Xavier Griffin. Ant Hill's an All-American caliber player. I think he's going to be a preseason All-America this year. He's got a very good chance to be a first-round pick, right? 3 and done, be a first rounder in the 2026 NFL draft. If you're Xavier Griffin, how do you not want that? How do you not look at that and say, yeah, that'd be pretty cool if that was me? So I like that strategy. I like that pitch for Texas on Xavier Griffin. We'll see what happens with him. He has a commitment date set for June 29th. As of now, Alabama is Texas's biggest competition. Griffin also has a visit planned for Florida State this weekend. So FSU in the mix as well, but it sounds like Texas and Alabama have a leg up on everybody else right now. Griffin has family in the state of Alabama. Again, he's from the state of Georgia. Obviously, that's closer to Alabama than Texas is. But from people that I've talked to, it sounds like this was a really good weekend for the Longhorns' chances of landing Xavier Griffin. So I think Texas right in the mix there. I'd probably lean Alabama right now. But again, Texas closing the gap on the Crimson Tide. The other big-time linebacker, I promised you two, and I promised you two from the state of Georgia, about Braden Rouse, 4-star, the 5th-ranked linebacker in the nation, according to the composite rankings. Texas offered Rouse back in January, and they have been pushing hard for him over the last few months. Great athlete, 3-sport star at his high school, 6'3", 210 pounds. This was his second visit to Austin. He came here on an unofficial back in April, was back on his official visit this weekend. He gave some quotes saying it was great. Said, quote, "This is my second time on campus. So coming down and just continuing to build those relationships with the coaches and the players was huge. Getting to see the town more and Austin itself was great," end quote. So high praise from Braden Rouse coming out of the weekend. Texas, by the way, recruiting him more as a traditional linebacker. That what we talked about with the Ant Hill, Xavier Griffin thing, that's not the Longhorn sell to every linebacker. That's just for specific guys and certain skill sets. Texas recruiting Braden Rouse more as an off-ball linebacker, which is kind of what he plays in high school. Michigan, Alabama, and Tennessee, the other competitors here. And Tennessee right now is viewed as the favorite in the industry. Rouse has been there twice. He'll be going there again this coming weekend. The Vols have been recruiting him longer than anybody else. I think that's the biggest reason why Tennessee kind of has a leg up on the competition right now. They were one of the first people to recruit him. They were one of the first people to offer him. And I think Braden Rouse, like a lot of guys, respects and appreciates Tennessee for doing that. I think Texas has made up some ground. Again, Rouse spoke very highly of the coaches, the players, the city of Austin. He really enjoyed it here. It sounds like Texas has had 2 very successful visits with Rouse in town. We will see what happens, though. Again, I think the other UT kind of in the driver's seat here. Mid-July commitment expected for him. Last one for this segment. You know what? We're going to have more nuggets in segment 2, so we'll keep the recruiting conversation going. But last one before the break, we're staying in the state of Georgia. Sensing a theme here. A lot of Georgia targets in town this weekend. How about 4-star edge Dre Quinn from Buford? This was his second visit to Austin. He was also a part of that Longhorn City Limits recruiting event back in April. And I think that Texas has recruited Dre Quinn better than any other school in the country over the last 2 to 3 months. Texas was a little bit late to the Dre Quinn sweepstakes, maybe started playing from behind, but they have honed in on him. They have done a tremendous job of staying on him. That communication has been great. They've gotten him to campus twice in the last 3 months. The Longhorns have really made Dre Quinn a point of emphasis, and I think he and his family can feel that. And again, that's something you appreciate. When one school only calls or texts like once every other week, and the other school is reaching out every day just to check in to see how you're doing, to let them know that they want you, that's a big deal for a lot of these kids. Everybody wants to be wanted. You get that. I get that. I think we all get that. So Texas doing a great job there. Dre Quinn, I saw earlier today, reportedly just canceled his visit to Notre Dame that he had set up for this coming weekend. Good news from a Texas standpoint. The Longhorns aren't alone, though. Clemson is the biggest threat right now. Clemson's big sell to Dre Quinn is early playing time. They can probably offer that more than Texas right now, but Texas can offer a lot. Development, playing in the SEC, better education, better team. Hey, check the score from that December game. There's a lot that Texas can sell to Quinn. The Longhorns have had 2 great visits for him. Again, one unofficial and one official. And if you ask me right now, I would say Texas has the leg up over Clemson. Georgia's involved too, in-state kid. But I think Texas would end up being the favorite at this moment in time for Dre Quinn. 6'4", 228, also plays receiver at his high school team, but listed as an edge by every recruiting service. So that's where he's going to play in college, the 26th ranked edge in this class. We'll see if Texas can go out of state and land another premium defensive lineman in this class. They've done a great job of that already. All right, we'll take a break. More recruiting nuggets to get into, including an update on my favorite target in this entire class and one of my favorite prospects that I've ever seen coming out of the high school ranks. We'll get to that here in a moment. Next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Game Time. How about Game 5 of the NBA Finals? If you want to be in the building in Oklahoma City, hey, short drive away from DFW. Maybe you're tuned in from there. Game Time has you covered. It's the best place to buy tickets. NBA Finals tickets, Stanley Cup playoff tickets, Major League Baseball tickets, and obviously when we get to football season, you want to get your Longhorn tickets, get them with Game Time. No surprise fees. They also show you a view from your seat, so you know exactly what your vantage point looks like before you buy your tickets. They've got great last-minute deals as well. They take all of the stress and the hassle and the scare out of buying your tickets. Game Time has made it so easy, and they've got the Game Time guarantee, so you know that you are getting the best deal. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, you make an account on that free Game Time app. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, and you are going to get $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. I just clicked something weird. Hopefully that didn't affect the recording. I think we're good. All right, another Georgia kid to start things off as we continue to break down the huge official visit weekend it was in Austin, Texas. This guy might be the most interesting player in the entire class, and I'll go a step beyond that. He might be the most interesting prospect I've ever seen coming out of high school. His name is Hezi Kent. He's 6'5", 300 pounds. You know, we got a screen share, so I'll show you. This is a picture that Kent himself posted on his Instagram account, obviously standing next to Steve Sarkisian. It's a big boy, right? Listed at 6'5", 300 pounds. So what's the big deal? 6'5", 300? Plenty of those guys in high school. Plenty. You know what I mean. Hezi Kent is listed as an athlete on the recruiting services. He's not an offensive lineman. He's not a defensive lineman. He is an athlete, and he plays tight end for his high school team, and that's what he wants to play when he goes to college. He is telling schools, hey, if you try to recruit me as an O lineman or a D lineman, I'm not coming. I'm not even talking to you. If you're like, hey, you're 300 pounds, so you got to shift inside and play on the line. He's not even talking to anybody who is not going to recruit and offer him as a tight end. When I see a guy at this size play anything but offensive or defensive lineman in high school, I'm like, that's cute. It's a fun story, but like, get real. You're either going to lose a ton of weight and play something else, or you do what God kind of wanted you to do when he made you that big and just play on the offensive and defensive line. Like, yeah, you're a good enough athlete to dominate your high school, but come on, in the SEC at that size, shift inside. Well, that's not the case with Hezi Kent. I think he knows he's going to have to shed some weight to be a really good college tight end. He can't play at 300 pounds. If he wants to be good in college, if he wants to play in the NFL at that spot, he's got to drop some weight. So he's not, I don't think he's saying like, I have to be 300 pounds and I have to play tight end. Otherwise, I'm not talking to you. I think he's willing to shed a few LBs. But again, he's not listening to anybody who doesn't want him to play tight end when he gets to college. Kent was here. This was his third visit to Austin. Florida, Florida State, and Miami are also getting or have gotten visits to this point. They are the biggest competition. I think Miami kind of at the top of that list for the biggest threats to Texas in this recruitment. But Texas could use Hezi Kent. Mark Bowman, the number one tight end of the class, committed to USC recently. Caden Prothro, another top tight end target. Trending Georgia. Those are two of the top three tight ends in the class. The other guy is already committed to Oregon. So as it stands right now, Texas missing out on like the very top of the heap when it comes to tight ends in the 26 class. Hezi Kent, not just a funny story. He's a top 150 player in the class, 4-star. So he's good. And again, that's not as an offensive lineman. Those rankings and those numbers and the 4 stars, that's as a tight end. So I want him, man. I just want to see if it works. I don't want to say I don't care if he's good. I hope he's good if he comes to Texas. But I'm fascinated to see if a guy that size, 6'5", 300 pounds, even if he sheds like 20 pounds, 6'5", 280 at tight end, bro. I think of Darnell Washington at Georgia. That guy was huge. That guy was tough to stop. Ended up being a second-round pick in the NFL. Hezi Kent's bigger than that. I'm fascinated to see what happens with him. Commitment coming on July 12th. So we'll keep you posted here on Locked On Longhorns. But I might want that guy more than anybody else in this entire cycle. Fascinated to see how this thing plays out. All right, a couple more for you here for this segment. How about another 5-star defensive lineman, Bryce Perry-Wright, another guy we talked about a lot last week. Most recruits, you can kind of follow the visits and get a pretty good idea of where they're leaning. Perry-Wright has visited each of his 4 finalists on more than one occasion. He's been to Austin at least 5 or 6 times through his recruitment. So Texas has a very, very good chance, and he will be committing on July 4th. So less than a month away, we'll get an answer. I said last week that Clemson is viewed as the favorite right now, but not by much. This isn't an open and shut case by any stretch. Miami and A&M are also in the fold as well. Perry-Wright's going to College Station this coming weekend. It feels like to me, from folks I've talked to, that Texas and Clemson may be like a half step ahead of Miami and A&M right now, but he already visited Miami. He's going to visit the Aggies, so you can't count them out just yet. Perry-Wright himself says that each school is even. That's not true. They'll say things like that. I respect a kid saying things like that. There's no way that's the actual case, but Bryce Perry-Wright, again, right now, no decision yet. I think Texas and Clemson are the top 2 for the 3rd-ranked defensive lineman in the class, a top 40 player in the nation, another Georgia kid from Buford. So much talent in this class from the Peach State. Thankfully, all of these guys aren't signing with Georgia, because if they did, they'd win a few national titles on this class alone. It's ridiculous. I know Georgia pumps out great players every year, but this year feels like on a whole nother level. But Bryce Perry-Wright, again, been to Austin a bunch of times. Another great weekend by all accounts. I think Texas in a very, very good position here. Them and Clemson feel like the top 2. I should probably stop the screen share. There you go. Let me make sure I do this right. There we go. That's updated. There was the Hezi Kent picture for another 5 minutes for those of you watching on YouTube. I'm just staring at that picture. I'm so enamored by that guy that I couldn't even take the picture off my screen and y'all's screen. Anyways, all right, we will round things out by bringing things back home to Texas. A couple of quick updates here. 4-star offensive lineman Zayden Griffin was in town. Texas has really turned up the heat on his recruitment over the past few months. He's from Prosper, up near the Metroplex. Played his high school ball, and he trains with current Texas offensive lineman Daniel Cruz. So Cruz was his host, did a good job. It's a good mentor, good friend, all good things from Texas's standing. The Longhorns in a good situation here. Michigan, the other team that you have to watch out for, was Zayden Griffin. He has an OV planned there this coming weekend. Top 20 interior O lineman in the class, 6'4", about 270 pounds. I like where Texas is, but again, Michigan right there. So we'll circle back on that one after that OV to Ann Arbor gets wrapped up. And last but not least, another 4-star, Jalen Lott, another Frisco area kid, plays his high school ball at Panther Creek, Texas, Oregon, USC. Those are the three teams kind of duking it out right now. Lott will be in Oregon this weekend. But the good news for Texas, and Lott's another kid we talked about a lot last week, so I won't spend a ton of time talking about him right now. Both of his parents played sports at Texas. They were great athletes. So a double legacy for Jalen Lott. I feel very good about him ending up at Texas. I do wonder if NIL could play a factor here. Texas obviously has money. They can offer a lot, no pun intended. But if Oregon or USC does something crazy and they drop a giant bag on Jalen Lott, maybe they convince him to go out of state. But I heard good things about this weekend. I was told Texas increased its chances with Jalen Lott. He's a priority for Chris Jackson. Again, athlete or wide receiver. Texas views him as a wide receiver. Chris Jackson, the receivers coach here, really wants him to be a part of this class. Texas usually gets guys that they really, really want. If you ask me right now, I think Jalen Lott ends up as a part of this 26 class. Lott, the 5th-ranked athlete in this class. So there you go. You're welcome. And thank you for listening. That's a lot of recruiting talk right there. A lot of updates. We'll have more throughout the course of the week. Texas hosting 14 players over these past few days, and it sounds like the Longhorns did a really, really good job with just about everybody. We'll have more as the week progresses. No commits, at least public commits yet from this weekend, but I'm sure those will be coming soon. All right, one segment left. Once again, Texas has proved that it's the best athletic department in America. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. I'll tell you what I mean next on Locked On Longhorns. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. For the 4th time in 5 years, your Texas Longhorns have clinched the Director's Cup as the best athletic department in college sports. This one came down to the very end. I mean, the very end. You had the men's and women's outdoor track and field championships happening over the weekend. And you know how close this was? You know what we have to thank for Texas winning this thing? Again, little brother, Texas A&M. Because Texas beat USC by 1.5 points. So Texas finished first, USC second, Stanford third for the Director's Cup. Texas A&M tied USC for the men's outdoor track and field championship. If USC won it outright, then USC wins the Director's Cup outright. But because USC and A&M split points, I don't know exactly how the scoring works, but because they shared the NCAA title, feels weird, and that means they split points in the eyes of the Director's Cup, and Texas holds off SC, again, by 1.5 points in the closest Director's Cup race that we have ever seen. So way to go, Aggies. I don't thank y'all very much. I don't compliment y'all very much, but you've earned it today. Appreciate that. Texas 1, USC 2, Stanford 3. Shout out to the Texas women's outdoor track and field team. They finished 10th. I think if they finished like 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, anything like that, and then Texas also comes up a little bit short. But because they finish in the top 10, they get a couple of extra points. And again, that's 4 times in the last 5 years for the Director's Cup. What a year for Texas sports. And in the SEC, everyone said Texas wasn't ready for the SEC. That wasn't just a football conversation. That wasn't every sport conversation. Oh, it's just different here. Just means more here. You guys, congrats on all the success you had in the Little Big 12, but this is the mighty, powerful SEC. You're not going to be able to do that here. Well, Texas now the first SEC school to ever win the Director's Cup. There have only been 3 schools to win this thing. This trophy dates back to the 90s. Stanford won it like for the first 20 of the first 24 years. North Carolina won it in year 1. Then Stanford won it like 20 times in a row. And then Texas has won 4 of the last 5. So once again, the Longhorns proving not only they're the best in the SEC, they did that by winning 8 SEC titles this year. Nobody else in the conference had more than 4. But they proved that they are the best athletic department in America by taking home another Director's Cup championship. What a year for the Horns. 2 national titles, men's swimming and diving, obviously softball, 5 top 5 finishes, 6 more top 10 finishes, and then those 8 SEC titles. Can't wait to see what the Longhorns do for an encore, but not too shabby in year 1 in the SEC. And we'll wrap things up with a little Texas baseball conversation as the Longhorns had a pretty successful weekend on the diamond as well. They had 2 more portal commits over these past few days. Caleb Freeman, transferring in from Georgia State. He's an infielder who hit .349 last season with 16 home runs, also swiped 15 bags as well. He was named the Sun Belt Newcomer of the Year. Was only at Georgia State for 1 year. Texas is actually the 5th school that he's going to. So he's been around the block. He's transferred to a number of different places. Texas will be the 5th and final school of his college career. But Sun Belt Newcomer of the Year. He was second team All Fun Belt as well. Mentioned some of the numbers. That's a good pickup for the Horns. And then also Jack Maroknek, an outfielder from Butler. Hopefully I pronounced that name right. If I didn't, sorry about that, Jack. 6'3", 185, second team All Big East this past season. He led Butler in home runs, hits, RBIs, batting average, and OPS. Also set a school record with 153 total bases in this 2025 season. He was also really good in 2024 at Butler. He led the Bulldogs in just about every category that year too. So back-to-back great years for Maroknek. He's coming in. He might be your Max Ballou replacement. You know, Ballou can come back, but I think he's going to be a pretty high draft pick in the MLB draft here in a few weeks. So I expect Ballou to sign and leave. Unfortunately, we love him, but I think he's ready for the next level. And Maroknek could be your plug-and-play right fielder. Again, a guy who's been a multi-year starter at Butler. Big East baseball, it ain't Big East basketball, and it ain't SEC baseball. So it's a leg up, or a step up, in competition for him. But those numbers are pretty damn good. Anytime you can lead a Division I baseball team in all of those statistical categories, anytime you could set a school record at a Division baseball team, for a Division I baseball team, I should say, that's usually a good thing. So the Horns add an infielder and an outfielder, in addition to Livingston, who they added from Wichita State a couple of weeks ago. I don't think Texas is finished. They also picked up a 2026 pitching commit, a kid out of high school as well, one-time Mississippi State commit. He also flipped to Texas over the weekend. So Schloss & Company continuing to do a really good job on the recruiting trail. Texas is losing a lot. They've got a lot to replace on a team that won the SEC regular season title and was the number 2 national seed going into the postseason. We don't need to talk about what happened in the postseason, but the Horns restocking. It's not a rebuild. It will be a reloading for Texas baseball for the 2026 season. All right, that's going to do it. A lot of good news over the weekend. Great weekend for Texas football recruiting. Great weekend for Texas baseball recruiting. And, oh, yeah, once again, the Longhorns prove that there's nobody better in college sports than the University of Texas. Wear that with a badge of honor this week, Texas fans. That's going to do it for today's show. If you made it this far, number 1, thank you. Number 2, please remember to like, share, subscribe, rate 5 stars, leave a comment, all of those great things. We really appreciate y'all making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, be sure to check out the Locked On Portal Show. My man Brian Smith, all of the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. He's also talking a ton of recruiting right now. Of course he is. That's dominating the college football world. If you want to be the most informed college football fan out there, find Locked On the Portal on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. More recruiting conversation and plenty more. You never know what we're going to get to. There's never a dull moment on the 40 acres. We've got you covered with everything you need to know right here on Locked On Longhorns. But that'll do it for today's show. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.